Good idea. Great. So then I think I will leave the word to you, Hans-Joerg, on this interesting topic, knowledge and truth in the digital age. And then we will wait for questions and comments for after your presentation. Okay.
Yes, thank you. And feel free to interrupt me if I take too much time for my presentation. So this is a nice opportunity then to talk to mainly close friends here, as I can see from the participants, the European political sociology, the RC, the RN32 is more or less like a family to me. And I have participated in activities for the last 15, almost 20 years. It is not only part of the academic life, it is also, or it has become part of private life, as many friendships over the years have emerged here. And this is not the opportunity to attend the ESA General Conference or our famous midterm conferences, but we had a nice opportunity last year in Lausanne. And now it is also a pleasure to give this seminar online. What I wanted to talk about then today is a chapter of my recent book. The book is actually not yet out. The book is about the public sphere in broad terms, and the topic of my talk will also partly refer to public sphere theory, and more specifically to the rise or to the contestation of knowledge and truth in public and media debates. So this is a question: how can diverse groups in a modern public sphere agree on questions of truth, and how can the public sphere provide the common knowledge base of a society that organizes in democratic terms? So is democracy helpful at all to settle questions of truth? Or can democracy, under certain conditions, be even detrimental to procedures of truth-finding? And this relates also to ongoing research, not only to a completed chapter, but also to my research agenda for the coming years. We have discussed some of these issues in an Erasmus Plus network that was coordinated by University of Iceland on post-truth politics and the democratic legitimacy of the European Union. What we did there, quite interestingly, was a podcast series. So we did interviews together with colleagues with journalists, with so-called fact finders, people who are involved in various projects to guarantee the news quality and the functioning of journalism. And you can access this podcast series. I think in total we have done over 15 expert interviews, which you can listen. And now, more recently, we also launched with the same partners from University of Iceland a Horizon 2020 project, which is called Reclaiming Democracy in the Post-Truth Age. And also here, in collaboration with University of Oslo, we will be conducting research on journalism. So let me start out then with some general thoughts on how modern society relies in very fundamental ways on truth mediators, precisely because in modern society there is no established truth. We are used to think actually of postmodern society, or the postmodern constellation of society, as characterized by a delusion of what is considered to be truth. But as a matter of fact, also modern society emerged by challenging established truth. And so this is a very foundations, actually, of modern society, that the principle that truth can be contested, that there are various groups within society that contest truth, and this has become part of the dynamics of modernization. And from a political sociology perspective, this means that when we embrace post-truth politics as a new research agenda, we also need to account for ways of truth contestation. And these obviously have to do with changing media. It is quite obvious that conditions for the generation of truth are related to the media, which a society can rely upon. And if society mainly communicates through mass media, then truth mediation, some would argue, is easier than in the current situation when communication is channeled mainly through a large variety of digital media. So to put it bluntly, there is one truth in state television. In fact, many consider public broadcasting even as a tool of state propaganda. But there are many truths on Facebook, on Twitter, or other social media platforms. So post-truth politics need to be understood then in relation to ongoing processes of digitalization, the idea that the digital media and a communication filter through digital media undermine standard procedures of truth finding and of truth mediation. So how society approaches a truth then that is taken for granted and shared by all if it relies mainly on the internet? This is the question. So let us turn then quickly to the social process of drawing information from our observations of the world, of the social and the physical world, how to arrive from observation to information. This is also the question, how does data, which is the raw data of observation, inform particular individuals or social groups? And if you think a moment about this question, whenever you use, for instance, your mobile phone, whenever you surf the web, you are dealing with some sort of data. And this data, as such, is measured in megabytes, in gigabytes, or even terabytes. You can check your mobile, which apps provide data, and also which apps produce data. So you have this mixture between digital technologies that provide you with particular data of the world, but at the same time, they produce data. They produce data about you, for instance, and how you move within the world. This is what happens when you use Google Maps. So digital media technologies then can actually observe the world, and they can turn this observation into data. For instance, they observe how you navigate the internet, and through cookies, then they would store this data. So digital media technologies are, from that perspective, constant providers of data. They collect, they bundle existing data from all kinds of sources. And the data universe of the digital media world is also expansive, not simply in the way that through digital media you are able to explore existing places, that you turn the analog into digital data. At the end, everything that is analog is also available digital, like, for instance, books from your library through Google Books, or like music through Spotify. But what comes in addition here, that digital media technologies are not only data providers, they produce data. And they even produce data in large amounts and in increasing amounts. So there is a lot of data around that would simply not exist without the internet. So the digital world then is expansive. For instance, an app that produces text. Now there's a lot of talk about ChatGPT that has precisely these capacities to produce text independently of authors that are humans. At the same time, if you think of journalism, you can think of news articles that are produced by digital apps, by artificial intelligence. Even whole newspapers can be generated through computers. And So this then generates also new world experiences. And from this perspective, this data is not simply virtual, it also becomes real in important ways. But what is real then is also then immediately contested. So there's an expansive virtuality, this is called in sociology, where digital data resides from the observation of the social and physical world, and at the same time that through digital data, new world experiences are generated. Think, for instance, the way our kids engage in computer gaming. And this social media then can be called, I read this by a Dutch sociologist, Noctimaris. She called this applied social constructivism. That social media are applied social constructivism in the way social contexts, interactions, networks are constituted through the own operations of digital media technologies. So the social world then, through digital media, is no longer simply our object of observation. It is also constituted through the observations that we perform or that are performed through digital media technologies or apps. So you cannot simply take then an observatory position that is outside and retrieve data from specific places, and you intervene all the time in data production. So there is a kind of observation intervention, and that applies even to physical spaces. If you think, for instance, how a webcam that produces digital data then changes the physical environment. And now comes the key question out of this, which is all this data that is daily produced to be considered information? So can all this raw data in itself already be considered as information? If not, how is this data turned into information? And the answer I would give is no, digital data is not information. It is only turned into information if someone makes use of data. So it is the usage of data that creates information. And this is an important distinction because a lot of data is actually not used. So if a camera, for instance, observes, there is no human or cognitive system that proceeds the data. It remains raw data, and it needs to be turned into information. So it becomes information of some cognitive system, which can be a human or a computer app, if there is a particular usage. So it is, with all this abundance, this overflow of digital data, this does not mean that this data is used, which means that it is turned into information of something, that it signifies something that adopts a social meaning. So at that point, I would like to introduce a distinction between non-information, information, and disinformation. If we turn first to the case of non-information, this relates to the case that data is there. We don't know exactly because nobody makes use of it. So it is potential information, data in the form of potential information that is not yet used. It might be used in the future, or it is simply stored somewhere and it remains ignored all the time. So digital data then is indeed constantly produced. It is recombined, but it is not necessarily picked up and used by someone to mark a distinction or to signify something. So digital data then contains the potential that somebody makes use of it. There is always a potential that existing data could inform about something. And this potential is activated by turning data into information of something. For instance, by marking it as an observation of something in ongoing communication. And the funny thing then is that we cannot see non-information. So if non-information relates to all potentially available data, we need to face the logical impossibility that we cannot see it, because from the moment that we see it, we would actually turn it into information. So we know that there is a lot of data that does not inform around, but from the moment that we try to identify it, to spot it, we actually turn it into information. So when we start looking for it, when we search for all this non-information, which is there, which exists in this endless flow of data, we then actually continuously produce information. So as soon as we spot something as non-information, it starts to inform about something. And then we have a second case of information. And information then can be defined sociologically simply as all kind of data usage, all different practices, ways, forms that data is used by someone. And usage means then turning data into information. And data needs to be attached to an observation. And such observation can be done by anybody, anytime. And the act of observation takes away then the neutral or the indefinite character of data. It demarcates a space of meaning. You could also say a space of social relevance. So there's a distinction made that a particular type of observation has been done to demarcate a particular meaning. So this data then stands for something. And digital data then simply collects potential points for demarcating the world. So information then means a specific demarcation of the social world or of the physical world. So observation would, however, be wrongly understood as an operation that simply picks up available data, that recombines it in a particular social context. Observation generates also new data. Every single act of observation generates new data because you can observe the act of observation. So there might be a third person that observes that I observe, which generates then new data. And so this means then that through these practices or acts of observation, data as information of the world is not only retrieved from the social and physical world, it is also changed. It is combined and recombined all the time. So I can also observe how information is generated, what people do with information, and I can observe how other people observe the social world by making use of particular data, by selecting particular data, and by giving it meaning, by considering it as relevant or as non-relevant. And this is precisely what you are enabled through digital media platforms. So think in a way that you use social media, you use indeed social media as forms of meta-observations. You observe how other people observe the social world. If you are on Facebook, you observe how people make or create meaning through Facebook, which again then is used as an information for yourself or for others. And I think this is the particular attraction also of social media, these possibilities to observe people observing their social world, observing culture, politics, and so forth. And so social media can then be described as a form of meta-communication. There's the German sociologist Niklas Luhmann. He would probably, if he would still be alive, describe this as a form of societal self-observation. And this indeed then is the key to understanding public sphere dynamics that are attached to this. So the social media public sphere then amplifies these possibilities of self-observation of a collective or of particular groups or even of society as a whole. And there are then multiple observations by users that turn data into information of something, that demarcate spaces of relevance, and all these operations are again observed. If you take what you are doing through Google, if you search something on Google or by navigating through your Facebook timeline, you access content, and the way you do this is at the same time turned into data by the company or by others, by your followers on social media. So from that perspective, data really multiply. You could say that the digital world is imploding with data here that informs about observations performed by other users. And whatever information is retrieved then by users is turned into new information for other users. Now, disinformation. What is then disinformation? Disinformation is not the case of non-information. Disinformation, in a way, is a form of information. It is not non-information. It means then that disinformation relates also to the usage of data. Disinformation is a particular form to use data in ongoing observation and to interpret this usage of data as wrong. So disinformation is an interpretation that some people use or turn data into information in the wrong way, that some people interpret the social world in a wrong way. So disinformation then is, essentially speaking, also a form of information. It is not distinct from information. It is also an observation of places or of persons that is then turned into shared knowledge, or that gives particular meaning then in social context. So this information then is a specific case of information that is identified as wrong, which also results then from meta-observation, because I can only observe this information if I observe how particular people turn data into information. So, and how is this done, that the usage of data is interpreted as wrong? It is done by calling it, for instance, non-factual, missing the truth, which again then can be attributed to a particular person. This person is observed of making a wrong usage of information. Maybe this person lacks the capacities, or does not make the right use, or is also morally corrupted, has wrong intentions. So there are various possibilities then to ascribe responsibilities. And the interpretation of wrong information usage in the form of disinformation is then again used in a social context to remind that there is also a correct use of information. So disinformation then basically maintains the distinction between correct and an incorrect use of data. So from that perspective, it is linked to a particular call to truth. Now, this was a long excursion, but let me turn then to a problem again of the use of digital information and the abundance of potential information, while at the same time reception in the digital world remains limited. So there is a lot of data that is turned into information. There's a lot of potential data that can be turned information, but at the same time, reception in the digital world is limited. And attention then remains a scarce resource. And depending on reception, we can assume that some data will inform some and not inform many. So in digital information environments, data usage is normally restricted to small social spaces. And every use of data needs to be seen in relation to the growing amount of data leftovers that are not used. So only a very restricted amount of data is used, and a lot of data is a non-use, which means then in terms of information environments that the size of those who are not informed by digital data is always much larger than the size of the few selected people who retrieve particular information from data. So this means that social media not only enhance our capacities to be informed, but they also enlarge the spaces of the people who are not informed. And so there's a selection bias then in the processing and reception of digital data, which is one side of the medal. The other side is the possibility that information value can be also publicly contested. So if some people consider the right use of information, other people will contest this as the wrong use. So there is a constant shift between information and disinformation. Data usage generates information and disinformation at the same time, and often what is correct and what is right here. The value of information is contested among individuals and among social groups. And such contestations typically take the form of epistemic struggles over truth. So we can expect that digital media result in enhanced contestations of truth. And I have called this then the information-disinformation paradox, which is best illustrated in recent trends of journalism and news building, that there is an abundance of news and the hurdles of access to news are very low. But at the same time, there is no parallel increase of the demand for news. This does not necessarily mean that people turn away from news. They still demand to be informed, but news are kind of almost everywhere on offer. And this demand can be mostly met by a free supply, for instance, through particular news app that you use on your mobile phone. And the higher the information supply, the lower then is the information value. And this, I think, explains well the current crisis of journalism that is not explained by the shortage of news, but rather by the abundance of news. And you can also analyze how algorithms select news in sometimes much more reliable ways than journalists do, which then contributes to the individualization of particular news spaces. So the space where news are considered as relevant is shrinking, so to speak. In the political realm, then, this disinformation paradox is paired with the enhanced transparency of democratic government, then, which accounts for growing information surpluses. So democratic governments are becoming also big data producers, and the democratization and digitalization of government then are mutually reinforcing processes which generate these information surpluses. Now, from this, I think we can derive a new agenda for political sociology, which is that we need to turn our attention to the social and political struggles over the value of information. So there is a new quality of conflicts that are about the value of information and the way data informs or should inform. And epistemic conflicts then are no longer fought in close epistemic communities, but they are increasingly entering the public arena. And this is a major challenge then for science. We all experienced this during the pandemic. Scientists who play a public representative role, they represent science in a public arena, and they defend truth in the public arena. And this means then that truth or questions of truth become political. Truth, of course, has always been political, but now it is salient, that it is attached to a political struggle that then include not only particular stakeholders, but large audiences, publics. And this implies then that we need to apply a different view on the media. The media are certainly wrongly understood as a neutral mediator of truth. The media become increasingly an arena of truth contestation. So it is no longer, truth is no longer contested on scientific conferences, but at the heart of media debates. And in particular, social media, like recently Twitter, will be used to challenge established truth and to challenge also the authority of science in quite fundamental ways. So there's a new fundamentalism of the contestation of truth, which then also points to a linkage between truth contestation and contestation about our values. And the way information is valued by different communities has to do with the values that are defended by this particular community. And what this points at ultimately to is an understanding of epistemic conflicts as value conflicts. So these are value conflicts which challenge our particular relationship to knowledge and truth. Who challenges truth does so by attacking also core democratic values, such as freedom of expression, diversity, and this happens, you all know this, in debates during the pandemic, in debates on gender equality or about vaccines, we could observe similar dynamics. So the research agenda here would be one of truth and post-truth that are intrinsically related to democracy and post-democracy, and as such, become crucial to our understanding of current challenges of society. That's it.